Hi everyone, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be here on today, as you will have already noticed, because I'm still on flipping jury service, which is very irritating. But I have recorded a lesson in the hope that it is useful for you. Here you go, enjoy, behave yourselves, and I will see you soon. So I want you to have a think, first of all, about looking at an 8-mark question. So you will get an 8-mark question in Crime and Deviance. So you're going to have a little go at this question on your own, first of all, explaining how gender is related to crime. We started talking about your assessment objectives during Year 11, looking at A01 and A02 for 8-mark questions. So you will get 4 marks for knowledge and understanding and 4 marks for applying that knowledge. So thinking about sociologists, thinking about examples, longer explanations, theories, that sort of thing. So remember, when you do 8-mark questions, it's all about exploring 2 reasons in lots of detail. Don't give 3 reasons in small amounts of detail. Do lots of detail. That's what you need. Lots of detail, 2 reasons. And this question is looking at linking gender and crime. You can look at males, or you can look at females, or you can do both. So both are important here. It's up to you which way you want to play it. There's loads of things that you can answer. We'll have a little look again in a minute. I would do 2 really clear paragraphs. So I would start with one reason is blah, 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 and make that first sentence exactly clearly what your reason is. Then explain it, then refer back to the question. Link it to how it's related to crime. Then your second paragraph, the second reason is. Explain it, state the reason, give it some explanation, link it back to how it relates to crime. Okay, so what I want you to do is have a little go at that now. So have a little go at that question, and then we'll have a little bit of a peer mark of it, particularly because I'm not here to help you. On the next slide, before you start this, on the next slide, I'm just going to put some ideas to help you, because jumping into this cold on a Friday morning, you'll probably be thinking, I can't remember anything about gender. So let's just look at the next slide, and then whoever's covering your lesson can actually leave the next slide up while you have a practice. So write that title down first of all, explain how gender is related to crime, and then what we will do is we will try the question. So these are the ones to put on here. So just having a little look then at some of the reasons that women in particular do crime, we've got there, and who does what crimes. So the sorts of things you might talk about, these are, if you like, 6 reasons. You just need to talk about 2 of them in detail. So choose 2 that you think you know well enough. So higher conviction rates for males. So males are more likely to be in prison. Males are more likely to be convicted of crimes. We've got chivalry thesis. We've got that idea of men or boys being more likely to be in delinquent subcultures and all of those sorts of things. And about females being linked to particular types of crimes. Crimes of the powerless, poverty linked crimes. Male, more likely to be violence. That sort of ties into the second box slightly there as well. You've got socialisation of gender, this idea that men are socialised to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more physical, all of those sorts of things. Women much more gentle. Again, that ties in with chivalry thesis. Again, we've got the idea that often females are not convicted of crimes. We've got social control of females, this idea that women are often made to take up a lot of their time doing the triple shift and that sort of thing. So women are controlled and therefore they don't have time to do their crimes, but also they're judged much more highly. So women who are less like the typical woman, so aggressive perhaps, that sort of thing, they are going to be judged, and so women sort of stay in their box, if you like, and behave in a very feminine way. Chivalry thesis we kind of mentioned, and then we've got Pat Carlin and women doing crime because they're in poverty, the crimes of the the powerless, women having less links to society, and so on. So those put into 2 reasons clearly. You can see some of them link there, but find yourself 2 clear reasons to answer that question. I have also put the crime revision guide and so on into the Google Classroom under the stream at the top. So if you have got access to Chromebooks, you can have a little look at those as well. So press pause. You're going to need 10 minutes for this question, I would say. So now you've had 10 minutes, this would be how to mark it. I would suggest that you focus primarily perhaps on band 3 and you start having a look at whether you think you're in band 3. Basically, as long as you've made your point, you've explained your point in detail with examples, with sociologists or theories, you've used sociological vocabulary, and you've linked back to the effect on crime, that's where you're in your band 3 and your band 4. So you would give yourself up to 4 marks for AO1 and up to 4 marks for AO2. You're all mostly band 4 and band 3, so have a little look at this slide. But if you think maybe you're more band 1 or band 2, that's on the next slide. So have a little look at this, press pause, have a look. And then here we've got band 2 and band 1. Unless you've basically written nothing, you're not going to be down at band 1. You're all clever little puppies. But have a little look at band 2. Some of you might be in band 2. On the next slides, the next few slides then, what I've done is I've just put some information to remind you of the different theories and the different bits of information. What I would suggest is you can either work as a group, as a class, and take some notes and then move on to the next slide or whatever it might be, or if enough of you have got Chromebooks, and there are enough Chromebooks, and whoever's covering you deems it appropriate, you could get Chromebooks and actually write some notes on all of these things. These are revision activity slides for you if you like. So we've got Robert Merton, first of all, strain theory. He's a functionalist. He's the one that talks about people turning to crime because they can't get those things that they want and that other people have through working hard, doing well in school, and so on. So he talks about people turning to crime, often those crimes that are about getting stuff. So it could be stealing, could be getting crime to get money in order to have the stuff that you like, all of those sorts of things. Remember, he does say that some people don't turn to crime at all. They actually just work hard to get what they like. But essentially, it's all about that strain between what you've got and what you want. So again, take some time to just write some notes if you want to on this slide. Albert Cohen, subcultural theory. We've talked about subcultures before. We know that subculture is a mini culture within the bigger culture that usually goes against, or not usually does, go against the norms and values of the other culture, of the main culture. So we've got Albert Cohen and his idea of these mostly boys, mostly working class, joining delinquent subcultures. This is all stuff that you've talked about before. This idea of status frustration. These people often turn to crime because they're fed up with their place in society. They don't feel that they're successful in the usual way, through maybe jobs, careers, education, that sort of thing. So they turn to crime to get their feel-good factor. They might be the leader of the gang. They might be the one that is the most violent, the most looked up to, and they feel good. So that's Albert Cohen, subcultural theory. Remember, these are all ways or reasons why people turn to crime. Again, stop, make yourself some notes. William Chambliss is the next one. So William Chambliss is a Marxist, and what he talks about is at the bottom there, that differential enforcement of the law. In other words, he talks about the law and, you know, the police and the judges and the courts and all of that sort of thing being controlled by the bourgeoisie, and therefore they gain out of it. It's all sort of biased towards them and therefore against the working class. And so the working class are the ones that are going to be imprisoned, they're going to be the ones in trouble, and so on, getting criminal records. So it's a typical Marxist view, if you like, this idea of the proletariat being exploited by the bourgeoisie and the bourgeoisie being in charge. Then we've got Howard Becker. So Howard Becker is the guy that talks about the deviant career. So he talks about the fact that once you get your label, so he's an interactionalist, once you get your label of being a criminal, you are a criminal. And it's hard to get out of that label, and you end up stuck in this deviant career cycle. And the criminal bit becomes your master status because you just don't know how to get out of it. So the idea is that once you're a criminal, you might go to prison, for example, or in another way get a criminal record. You then can't get a job. You then turn to crime again. Then you meet more criminals. Then you go back to prison. Then you can't get a job, and it just carries on in a cycle. And he talks about labelling as well, people living up to their labels. If your label is criminal, it's hard to not live up to that label, the self-fulfilling prophecy that we've talked about lots of times. Then we move on to the feminists. So Frances Heidelson is the first one to think about, who talks about social control theory, this idea that society is a patriarchy and that women are very tightly controlled. Now, what can happen there is they are unlikely to break the rules. They don't want to go against the social norms of what it is to be a woman. So they are very, very controlled. Their time is controlled, the way that they behave is controlled. And she believes that is a reason rather, why women are less likely to turn to crime. And there are more men doing the crimes. And then Pat Carlin. So Pat Carlin is the person that talks about that women are controlled, still believes that women are controlled because is a feminist point of view, but they talk about being controlled through being promised rewards, so that what happens is that women are controlled through money, through love, through happy marriages, all of those sorts of things. And then what happens is, if they're not linked to society because they don't have those rewards, so they're people that aren't fitting into that mold of being happily married or being happily in a job or just happily being, if you like, a controlled woman, then those people are not bonded well to society and they will be likely to commit crime. So the main problem with her study is, you can see it's really, really little. She only talked to very few people, 39 women, and therefore it's not a very good study because it doesn't study very many people. But she's essentially saying that women do crime when, having been controlled, they start losing their links to society. Finally then, looking at our crime section of our revision, you will get a 15 marker on crime, and we know that 15 markers are often essentially debate questions, so they're two-sided arguments. So across the top in the white are some ideas of what might be those sorts of questions. So you might get something like, crime is mainly committed by young working class males, do you agree? That could also be something like old people or ethnic minorities or boys or whatever, but that sort of question. So we're going to focus on young working class males. Or crime statistics can be trusted. Do you agree? Crime mainly happens because of poverty. Do you agree? And of course it could be, instead of poverty, other things as well. Then crime is a necessary part of society. Do you agree? That's obviously a theory question. Which theories believe crime is necessary? Which theories believe that crime is actually not just unnecessary but unfair in who it affects more than others, is really what that's asking you. So you'll get a sheet like this in the lesson. If I'm there at the beginning, I'll give them to you. If not, I'll leave them with Mr. Lapham, and just spend some time, probably 15-20 minutes, trying to fill that in as a kind of revision activity for you, really. Like I said, there's resources on the Google Stream, Google Classroom Stream for you, or you might have your books with you to have a look at. So have a little go at that question if you can, or not that question, that information sheet if you can, to make yourself a revision resource. And then you could have a little go at this question if there is time for you to do so. I don't want you to spend more than till about 10:15 or so on crime. So if right now it's 10:15, leave this, and I'll just ask whoever's covering your lesson to let me know that you've left it, and we'll have a look at it at a different time. But essentially, crime is mainly committed by delinquent subcultures. Do you agree? And so all I want you to do is fill in this sheet. Yes, argument 1 would be yes, you agree, and why. Argument 2 would be an opposite reason. No, it's not delinquent subcultures, it's something else. So maybe poverty, maybe labelling, whatever it is that you might want to pick. And then argument 3 is the third reason. So I'm not asking you to do this as a question. I'm not asking you to do it in silence. I'm asking you to prepare yourself a revision resource that will help you do that question at a later date. Okay, thank you. I will hopefully, almost definitely be back next week. I am sorry to have missed you. I might miss you again on Tuesday. If I do, I'll leave you just revision to do, and I am so sorry.